The moon hung low over Akamu village, dim and swollen like an old lantern losing its flame. The wind swept across the grasslands with a strange rhythm, as if something unseen was dragging its feet along the earth. Inside a small mud house at the village's edge lived Momonoki, an old blind woman with silver-white hair and trembling hands. She was known for one thing. She could hear what others could not. People said her ears were cursed. Some said they were blessed. But everyone agreed on one thing. Momonoki did not just hear the living. She heard the dead. That night, she sat by her wooden stool, weaving raffia mats by touch. Her head tilted slightly, like someone listening to a distant whisper. Then she froze. Her fingers stopped moving. Her cloudy eyes widened. Because she heard it again. That sound she had prayed never to hear anymore. A soft, slow, rasping breath. Not from the window. Not from the door. Not outside. From inside her hut. From the darkness behind her. Someone was breathing. Momonoki's lips trembled as she whispered, "Go away. I buried you myself." But the breathing grew louder. Earlier that day, the villagers gathered at the marketplace. The air smelled of roasted cassava and dust, but nobody was relaxed. A boy had been found at the edge of the forest, unconscious, terrified, murmuring the same thing over and over. She hears them. She hears them breathing. The elders exchanged worried glances. They all knew who she meant. Momonoki, once a healer, once respected. Until she started hearing voices from empty rooms. Until the dead started whispering to her when she slept. She told the villagers things only the buried would know. Where someone hid stolen goat meat. Whose husband had a secret second family. Whose ancestor cursed the land. People feared her. And yet they needed her. Because strange things had begun happening in Akamu. Shadows moving at dusk. Children hearing footsteps behind them. Farms drying overnight. People waking up with muddy footprints around their beds. Something was stirring. Something old. And Momonoki was the only one who heard it breathing. Momonoki gripped her walking staff, her knuckles white. Her breath trembled. The breathing behind her shifted positions, as if something was crawling across the clay floor. Slowly, deliberately toward her. She forced the words out. "I buried you by the river. Why have you come back? What do you want?" Silence. Then a faint whisper like leaves rustling. "You didn't bury me alone." Momonoki's heart nearly stopped. She knew that voice. She had prayed never to hear it again. It was the voice of her dead son, Kofi. Kofi, who had drowned in the river 10 years ago. Kofi, whose corpse she found with strange symbols carved on his chest. Kofi, who she buried silently, because she feared the village would discover what really killed him. Now his voice slid across the room again, but it was wrong, twisted, stretched. "Mama." Someone else was there. Someone who followed me into the water. Her staff rattled in her hand. "Stop," she whispered. "You are not my son. The dead do not speak." The voice chuckled. "Then why do you hear me breathing?" Flashback, the night Kofi died. The story cuts to a stormy night from Momonoki's memory. Rain hammered the hut. Wind screamed through the cracks. Kofi, young, strong, curious, had insisted on going out to check on the family goats near the river. Momonoki begged him not to go. But he said something strange that night. "Mama, someone keeps calling my name from the water." She slapped him. Out of fear, not anger. But Kofi went anyway. Hours later, villagers found him floating face down. His body was cold, too cold. His chest had marks, marks that did not look human. Mama Naki screamed until her voice broke. She buried him alone. She told no one what she had seen carved on him. A symbol. A spiral with a line through it. The mark of the drowned one. A forgotten spirit of the river. A spirit who did not just take lives. Borrowed them. And now, 10 years later, Kofi's breathing had returned to her hut. Mama Naki heard movement again. Slow, dragging motions, accompanied by soft dripping sounds. Water. Wet footsteps. Then something cold touched her shoulder. She gasped. Her legs almost gave out. A voice whispered by her ear. Mama. It wasn't just me who drowned. She shook her head violently. Leave me alone. Go back to your grave. Harsh, wet inhale. I would, but someone dug it up. Mama Naki's entire body froze. Her breathing stopped. Her mind spun. Who would dig up the grave? Why? Did they find the symbol? Did they summon something? Before she could speak, the breathing abruptly stopped. Silence. Heavy. Deadly. And someone or something was knocking on her door. Low. Steady. Wong. Mama Naki raised her staff, pointing it toward the sound. Her voice cracked as she whispered. Who is there? Long pause. Then a woman's voice, trembling, frightened, answered. Mama Naki, please. Open the door. I need your help. Mama Naki recognized it. It was Amma, a young woman from the village. But something felt off. Amma never visited her at night. Nobody did. Not with the stories about the dead breathing inside her hut. Another knock. Mama, please. I'm not safe. Let me in. Mama Naki stepped forward cautiously, her staff tapping the dirt floor. As she approached, her sharp ears picked up something else. Behind Amma's voice. Behind the door. Breathing. Low. Wet. Not from Amma. From something standing behind her. Mama Naki whispered. Amma. Are you alone? A shaky reply. Yes. But Mama Naki heard it clearly. Second voice. Low. Gurgling. Almost drowned. Lies. Mama Naki stumbled back in terror. Amma screamed. Not from outside. But from right behind the door, as if something grabbed her. But her body slammed to the ground. Then silence. Complete silence. Except for one thing. A single, slow breath coming from the other side of the door. And then a whisper. Mama Naki, open the door. The moon disappeared behind a thick veil of clouds, plunging Akamu village into a hollow darkness. The kind of darkness that felt heavy, breathing, watching. Inside her hut, Mama Naki stood frozen, one hand on the wooden door, her ears stretched forward like a hunted animal. Outside, the wet, drowning breath continued. A single wet fingertip touched the door. Mama Naki stumbled backward, clutching her walking staff so hard her knuckles ached. She whispered into the shadows. Kofi. If it is truly you, speak your mother's name. Silence. Then the drowned voice whispered. Mama. It was Kofi's voice, yes, but stretched, broken, as if someone else was speaking through his drowned lungs. Then something scraped across the door. Long nails, or bone. Mama Naki backed away until her spine pressed against the far wall of her hut. She lifted her staff. Her voice trembled but held strength. If you force that door open, I will burn whatever is left of you. The breathing paused. Then slowly, softly, a new voice murmured from outside. Different voice. Older. Will. A voice she had not heard in decades. Naki. Mama Naki's heart nearly burst. She whispered. Kojo. Her dead husband. The one who vanished into the river long before Kofi was born. The one villagers believed had run away. The one she knew was taken by the same drowned spirit. A watery gurgle answered. You never came looking for me. Mama Naki squeezed her eyes shut. No, she whispered. This is a trick. This is not Kojo. You cannot be him. The voice chuckled, wet, bubbling, unnatural. Come to the river, Naki. Or we will come inside. A heavy thud hit the door. Then another. As if two bodies leaned against it. The door frame groaned. Mama Naki held her breath. The last thing she wanted was to face the river again. But if she didn't, something unholy would force its way into her home. Meanwhile, in the village square, a crowd formed around the chief's hut. Torches flickered in the wind, illuminating frightened faces drenched in sweat. An elder spoke in a trembling voice. No more hiding the truth. Strange things are happening again. The dead are not sleeping. The chief sighed heavily. We cannot keep blaming spirits. Maybe it is wild animals. Before he could finish, the boy who found the tree spirit last week shouted. My grandmother heard breathing on her roof last night. Another villager added. My son swears he saw a shadow swimming in the river, when no one was there. A woman cried. Something is walking around at night. Something heavy, dragging itself. The chief rubbed his face. Finally he said. There is only one person whose ears can hear the truth. Everyone fell silent. Course. Umanaki. The old woman who could hear the dead breathing. Inside the hut the thud stopped. The breathing stopped. Everything went silent. Too silent. Mama Naki slowly lowered her staff. Maybe they had left. The door opened by itself. Just an inch. Just enough for the cold, wet smell of the river to crawl inside. Mama Naki's entire body stiffened. She whispered shakily. Kofi. Kojo. If it is you, then show yourself. A single drop of river water fell onto the floor. Then another. Then a footprint. A wet, muddy, barefoot print. And right beside it a second one. They were coming inside. Mama Naki screamed. Enough! She grabbed the calabash on her shelf, a sacred vessel filled with ash from the shrine of the ancestors. She smashed it against the floor. The ash exploded into the air like a gray cloud. Instantly, two silhouettes became visible in the dust. Distorted, half-formed. Bodies dripping as if sculpted from water. One tall. One medium. Kojo and Kofi. But their faces were wrong. Their eyes were hollow. Their mouths hung open in eternal drowning. Their limbs sagged like soaked cloth. Mama Naki pointed her staff at them and chanted. Go back. Go back to the river that claimed you. You cannot have me. The spirits froze. Then they pointed behind Mama Naki. Slowly. Together. Mama Naki turned. Her heart cracked. There, on the wall of her hut, drawn in wet mud, was the same symbol carved onto Kofi's chest the night he died. The spiral. With the line through it. The mark of the drowned one. Mama Naki dropped to her knees. No! Her voice broke. No, not again. Why is this spirit back? Kofi's drowned voice whispered. Mama, it was never gone. Thunder. The river surged like a living creature. Mama Naki was younger, standing on the muddy riverbank, calling her husband's name. Kojo! Kojo! Then she heard it. A sound she would never forget. Breathing. Not human. Not animal. But ancient. Then whispered words from beneath the water. Your husband is mine. Your son will be mine. And you You will hear us forever. Mama Naki fled that night. She never returned to the river again. But the river did not forget her. The drowned forms of Kofi and Kojo stood motionless, dripping, staring at her with black, empty holes where their eyes once were. Mama Naki steadied herself. Her voice grew calm, steady. What do you want from me? Kofi's shadowed mouth twitched. Mama, someone dug up my grave. Kojo's drowned chest bubbled as he added. They took something important. What? Mama Naki whispered. The two spirits glanced at each other. Then Kofi spoke. My bones. Mama Naki gasped. Who would do that? The answer chilled her blood. Kojo whispered. The same man who carved the symbol on Kofi's chest. Mama Naki's stomach twisted. No, he died years ago. No, Kojo said. He returned. And he wants you. Before Mama Naki could react, the spirits suddenly stiffened, as if yanked backward by invisible ropes. They turned their heads sharply toward the river. Their bodies trembled violently. Kofi's voice gurgled. Mama, he is coming. Kojo's voice layered over his. Run! Then both spirits were violently ripped backward through the door, as if sucked by a force outside. Mama Naki screamed. Kofi! But it was too late. They were gone. Dragged back into the darkness. Dragged back toward the river. Dragged back to their master. At the edge of the village, a group of villagers were gathering torches, preparing to go to Mama Naki's hut. Then they heard it. A scream so sharp, so full of pain that even the wind went still. The chief whispered. That was Mama Naki. The boy trembled. Chief, should we still go? The chief swallowed hard. Yes. If she is in danger, we must go. Even if the dead stand in our way. The villagers lit their torches and marched toward her home. They had no idea they were walking toward something ancient. Something hungry. Something that had awakened. Inside the hut, Mama Naki collapsed to the floor, shaking violently. Her son's grave was dug up. The man who marked him was still alive. And the spirit who took Kojo had returned for her. She wiped her tears and forced herself to stand. She lifted her staff. She wrapped a red cloth around her waist. She whispered to the darkness. Enough running. Then louder. If the river wants me, I will go to the river myself. The air grew cold. The wind hissed through her window. As she stepped outside, the earth beneath her feet was wet, as if the river had come to her doorstep. The trees leaned toward her. The night seemed to hold its breath. Mama Naki whispered. Show me the grave. The wind obeyed. It rushed eastward toward the forest, toward the river, toward the grave that was no longer a grave. Mama Naki followed, unaware of the villagers following her, unaware of the spirit lurking behind the trees, unaware of the drowning breath stalking her steps. The night felt heavier than it should. Even the insects had gone silent, their songs swallowed by a deeper, older sound drifting through the forest. Mama Naki walked with her staff gripped tight, following the wind's pull toward the forest. Her feet trembled with every step, but her jaw stayed firm. She had spent decades running from the river spirit. Tonight she would face it. Behind her, the village chief, the elders, and a handful of brave villagers followed with torches. They kept their distance, unsure whether to approach or retreat. The chief whispered, Mama Naki, let us walk beside you. She didn't look back. No. If that thing wants me, I won't let it take anyone else. The villagers exchanged frightened glances but continued walking anyway. The deeper they went into the forest, the colder the air became. The trees bent unnaturally, leaning toward Momonoki like listeners hungry for her breathing. The ground grew wet. Mud clung to her feet. Finally, the forest opened into a clearing. And there it was. Kofi's grave. Or rather, what was left of it. The soil around it was torn apart as if dug up by hands too desperate, too frantic to feel pain. Bones were scattered in a circle. Some cracked, some snapped clean in half. Momonoki's voice broke. "My son, my poor child." She knelt and lifted one of the bones, Kofi's forearm, the one she used to hold when he was a small boy terrified of thunder. A villager gagged. Another whispered, "Who would do this?" The chief shook his head slowly. "Someone who knows forbidden things. Someone who understands the mark he left on the boy." Momonoki swallowed. There was only one man. The same man who had once carved the forbidden symbol into her son's chest. A man she thought the river had swallowed long ago. The Bone Speaker. A sorcerer who fed on death. Momonoki stood slowly, her shoulders trembling. The air shifted. A cold wind coiled around her legs like fingers. Then she heard it. Not from the trees. Not from the ground. Not from behind her. From the grave. A whisper. "Naki." She froze. The villagers stepped back in terror. The whisper grew louder. "Why did you leave me in the river?" Her blood iced. Kofi's voice. Except it wasn't truly him. It was twisted, stolen, wrong. Momonoki whispered. "Kofi, my son. Please do not let him use your voice." The whisper deepened, turning into a wet, drowning growl. "Come closer, Mama." Momonoki refused. She stood tall. "No." The grave growled angry. Something moved beneath the soil. Something large. Something alive. The villagers stumbled backward. Clack. A bone snapped on the ground by itself. Another bone slid across the mud. Another twisted upward like a finger. Pieces that should not move were moving. The chief shouted, "Everyone back away now." But Momonoki held her ground. She raised her staff. "If you want me, come out." The soil split. A hand rose from the earth. But not flesh, not bone, not anything human. A hand made of river mud and broken bones, dripping with stagnant water. Then an arm. A shoulder. A head. A creature of drowned remains pulled itself out of the grave, breathing in jagged, wet gasps. Its face flickered. Sometimes Kofi's, sometimes Kojo's, sometimes a stranger's face she did not know. The villagers screamed. One dropped his torch. Another fled into the trees. The chief backed away, eyes wide with horror. Momonoki whispered. "The drowned one. The ancient river spirit that claimed her husband. The spirit that claimed her son. The spirit that whispered through the ashes of death." The monster rose fully now, towering above them, dripping mud, bones rattling, breath bubbling like a corpse underwater. It leaned its horrible face toward her and whispered, "You hear us breathe. Now let us borrow yours." The monster lunged. Villagers screamed and scattered. Momonoki stood unmoving, her staff clenched. "No!" She slammed the staff onto the ground. A shock of red ash exploded outward, the same ancestral ash she had used inside her hut. The creature recoiled, shrieking. The forest trembled. The very air shivered in fear. Momonoki raised her voice. "You cannot have me. You cannot have my son. Return to the river that birthed you." The drowned one hissed and charged again, faster this time, its mud-soaked limbs dragging behind it. Momonoki held her ground. She expected to die. She was ready. But before the creature reached her, a torch flew through the air and struck its chest. A villager had returned. Then another torch hit it. Then another. The monster screamed. A howl of drowning waters, ancient rage, and stolen breath. The villagers circled Mama Noki again, their fear turning into courage. The chief shouted, "We stand with you, Mama Noki." Flames lit the clearing. The forest glowed red. The creature staggered backward under the combined heat. Mama Noki saw her chance. She stepped forward. Her voice thundered like a storm. "Give me back my son's breath." She thrust her staff into the creature's chest. Crack! The monster convulsed. A thick gasp burst from its hollow throat, a sound like someone taking their first breath after drowning. A small glowing wisp drifted out of the creature's chest. A warm, human, Kofi's last breath. Mama Noki cupped it gently in her hands. Tears poured down her face. "Rest, my son. Rest at last." She lifted the wisp toward the sky. Rose, glowing brighter and brighter, then faded peacefully into the night. The creature collapsed. Its body of mud and bone crumbled back into the stolen grave. Silence. The villagers lowered their torches. The chief whispered, What was that?" Mama Noki wiped her tears. Her voice quivered but held strength. "That was the last breath of my child. And I have returned it to him." The ground stopped trembling. The air warmed. The forest loosened its grip. But before relief could settle, a cold wind slithered through the trees. A familiar breathing followed. Mama Noki closed her eyes. "It's not finished," she whispered. The villagers stiffened. The chief swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" Mama Noki slowly turned toward the river path, where the wind was blowing, heavy and dark. "The creature we fought tonight." She took a shaky breath. "That was not the drowned one." The villagers froze. A chill spread through the clearing. Mama Noki continued. "It was only one of his children." The torches flickered violently. Something massive shifted in the distance. Something waiting. Something breathing. Mama Noki tightened her grip around her staff. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "The river god has awakened. If you dare step deeper into the darkness, subscribe now. More spirits are waiting for you in the shadows."